Today we're going to talk about how to identify key features of a quadratic function from a table. After going through the review, hopefully you are comfortable with everything that we identified from the graph. So let's talk about how it'll change slightly when we're looking at a table. Okay. If we have the coordinate points for the quadratic equation y equals negative x squared minus 8x minus 15, how can we identify the key features? So here's our table here. We have the points negative 6, negative 3, negative 5, 0, negative 4, 1, negative 3, 0, and negative 2, negative 3. We can actually go ahead and identify our vertex by finding kind of the point that's in the middle of the pattern. So notice my y values go from negative 3 to 0 to 1 and then back to 0. So right here is kind of the middle of my pattern. So my vertex is right there in the middle. Okay, then we're going to decide if it's the minimum or maximum. Now all I have to do is compare my y values. We set our vertexes here. Is that y value the biggest number in my list or the smallest? And that's going to tell us if it's the minimum or maximum. Axis of symmetry is always going to be the x value from our vertex. Domain is always going to be all real numbers. Range is going to be the y value from the vertex and then either less than or greater than. It depends on if you have a minimum or maximum. And then x-intercept is the one that has the 0 and then a number. Sorry, y-intercept has a 0 and then a number. Your x-intercept has a number and then a 0. Okay, so these are all our key features that we found yesterday. Now we're going to look at the table and use the table to help us find them. So vertex is in the middle of the pattern. For minimum or maximum, we're going to decide is the y value the biggest or the smallest. Axis of symmetry is x equals, and then use the x value from the vertex. Domain is always all real numbers. Range, we're going to use the y value from the vertex and then greater than or less than. And your x-intercept has a 0 first. Y-intercept has a 0 second. So let's go ahead and do all of these for this table. Okay, so you'll notice here that this table is the same. We're going to get all of the key features from here. So my vertex we said is where the y's start to kind of go backwards in our pattern. So negative 3, 0, 1, 0. So since I go from 0 to 1 and then back to 0, I know that this negative 4, 1 is my vertex. Okay, so we're going to do negative 4, 1 for my vertex. Now, for the minimum and maximum, we need to decide if my vertex is the biggest number on the list or the smallest. And if you notice that 0 is smaller than 1, and negative 3 is also smaller than 1. So if that's my biggest number on my table, that means I have a maximum there. My axis of symmetry comes straight from my vertex, so that negative 4 that I have my vertex is going to be my axis of symmetry. Domain is always all real numbers. And then my range is going to be y, and then the y value for my vertex, so we're going to use this 1 from up here. And then since everything is smaller than this vertex, okay, so everything is smaller than my y value here, we have a less than or equal to sign. Okay. Y-intercept has a 0 comma something, or a 0 on the left side, and we don't have that there. We're going to talk about that in a second. My x-intercept has zeros coming second, so I have two of those here. I have negative 5, 0, and negative 3, 0. So my x-intercepts are at negative 5, 0, and negative 3, 0. Now you could go ahead and keep going and try to follow the pattern here. So if I do that, we added 3, and then we added 1, and then we subtracted 1, and then subtracted 3. So if I follow that pattern, I think I'm going to do minus 5, and then minus 7. Okay, so negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. Negative 8 minus 7 is negative 15. Okay, one other way I know that my y-intercept is 0, negative 15, is if I go back to the equation, my c here gives me my y-intercept. Okay, don't always have the equation, but it works for that one. So 0, -15 is my y-intercept. Okay, so just kind of followed my pattern here. Subtract 1, subtract 3, subtract 5, subtract 7. Just kept going till I find my 0 for my x value. So here's all of our information. Let's do one more together. Okay, so again, we're going to identify the key features. My vertex is where my values start to go back from where they came from. So 4, -2, -4, -2. So right here is kind of where they reflect, or they're the same on both sides. So this here gives me my vertex. So my vertex is -1, -4. Okay, now if I look at this y value and compare it to the other y values, you'll notice that this is the smallest of the numbers in the list. So I'm going to pick minimum there. Axis of symmetry always comes from my vertex, the x value for my vertex. And domain is always all real numbers. My range is y, and then my y value for my vertex. And then if this is a minimum, that means all the numbers are bigger than -4. So we're going to use a greater than or equal to sign. Okay, if all the numbers were smaller, then we would use a less than or equal to sign. Okay, last one. Y-intercept is easy this time. 0, -2. Okay, and then x-intercept is a little tricky now because we end up with a 0 somewhere in here. So, if this is the case, you can approximate it. So we're going to say that my x-intercept is somewhere closer to 0. So I'm going to say like 1/2 maybe? Somewhere in between. Okay, that means there's also one over here. Okay, so these are kind of tricky. Try your best. See if you can figure them out. So -1/2, 0, and 1/2, 0. Okay, probably not perfect, but it's somewhere in between those two. And actually, I shouldn't say this one is -1/2. Let's see. Because it's actually between -2 and -3. So that one should be -2.5. Fix that. For my vertex, or for my x-intercept. Okay. So go ahead and try. So I want you to go ahead and try the guided practice problem. I actually found a mistake, so I just fixed that a little bit. Identify the key features. You'll notice that there aren't any x-intercepts here, so do your best kind of approximating them. We'll work on that a little bit more. When you finish, have it checked. We'll get your homework, and you can get some more practice going with these. Just a heads up, today we did the identifying key features from tables. You have homework to do tonight for that. And then tomorrow we're actually going to review all the key features and take a quiz to make sure you're okay with this. If you have any questions, hit pause, raise your hand, rewind if you need to. Once you finish the guided practice problem, let us know and we'll check it out. Have a great day.